Good afternoon. Lea Utsira here, also known as Uta Hagen. Lea Utsira is my pen name for writing children's books. I did not want the children's books to be associated with the pen name Uta Hagen that I use for writing and posting about all the trans issues. And there was something, though, that I was thinking about regarding artifacts. And this pertains to my book, which it will be in mirror writing here. But I wrote a book about um, the grief process and strategies for separation. This has to do with the My Heart, Your Heart is this was my heart, and this was the heart I gave my mother, made out of, I think it's garnet. And it happens to be shaped rather like the human heart, whereas my alabaster heart is shaped like a Valentine heart. And this book also is illustrated with my photographs, my nature photographs, and has my memory ledge where I keep little things that would have been favorites of my mother's. Here's another picture of the memory ledge that's out there in the woods. And it happens that my mother had congestive heart failure in her 100th year, and she died in 2019, right before her 100th birthday. Now, the reason I'm bringing it up is this idea of things and how people who decide that they ideate to be the opposite sex and decide that their past is as if they were dead and their old name is called the dead name. That's their choice. It's not us trans widows saying that I call my husband by his dead name. I don't call my husband by any of the names that he was or is now known by. Nettie is a made-up name, and the only reference that I have for it actually is Nettie was one of Bo Peep's goats. A lot of those children's rhymes have much longer sets of verses, and I saw that one of the sheep of Bo Peep's was named Nettie, and that just stayed with me because I didn't want to have a name really ruined for some man. I didn't want to call him John or Bill or something like that in case you're married to someone named John or Bill, that type of thing. So that's why I chose Nettie for Nettie's pen name in the memoir. And I want to point out that if you go through this process of erasing your past, then you're going to lose all of these things which serve as talismans and keep you connected to those who you are most closely related to. And it's a great comfort to me now that my mother is gone to have both of our hearts. And she kept this with her, and I kept my alabaster with me as we went through that year because we were separated by many thousands of miles, and I only got to go see her one last time about 6 months before she died. I didn't make it out there right before she died. It was a bit of a surprise. The people at this hospice convinced her she should take the morphine, and she wasn't that sick. I had a cousin who told me that she was still walking and talking and actually rather lively. So that's another thing that's kind of happening with all this. Let's allow someone to choose their own death, sort of, going on up in Canada. And I think it's in a way, because of the nihilism, it's related a little bit to the cross-sex ideology. But that's just a little by way of introduction. piece about my thought process and how I think you're taking some very important things away from yourself if you decide that your past is dead. Your past is never gone, actually. You can't make your past disappear. And so this is the real topic today. Um, the real topic today is the 4 trans widows profiles. Now, my profile on transwidowsvoices.org is under Bertina. I think I'm in the second row now of the profiles under the Our Voices section of transwidowsvoices.org. And I'm happy to say that it's been more than a year and more than 15,000 people have read those 3 or 4 paragraphs about the latter phase of this trans widow journey of mine. And I have to thank Tinsel Angel, the pen name of the originator of transwidowsvoices.org, and I believe that she is also the originator of the term trans widow. So, Luanne, they're all pen names. It's Luanne, Juliet, Gia, and Belissa. I'm trying to pick slightly more rare names, but I can't just give them made up names. So they have names that I've assigned. Some of them I know their real names, and Luanne, I don't happen to know her real name, but this story was relayed to me by someone who lives near her out west in a blue state. She has a couple of children who are probably maybe just out of high school and still in high school. And her husband is a firefighter. Her now ex-husband is a firefighter. He kept the job, and he became quite popular as a now so-called female firefighter in this medium-sized town in a blue state. And the same thing kind of happened with the children as with my children. The children were traumatized, of course, at first, that they don't get to call their dad, and he's saying he's a woman. He apparently has a very gregarious, large personality, and he's the fun dad who's a firefighter. And except that I guess he does his firefighting sort of in drag, and he doesn't pass at all. Everybody knows that he used to be, or that he is a man, and that he's taken on a female persona through his own volition. But he's very, very popular. And supposedly now this fire department gets to say, oh, well, we have some female firefighters, so we have diversity, and so on. And Luanne has retreated to an almost solitary life. The children see her very little, and she lives in a little house on the outskirts of town, and she really doesn't associate with very many people that used to be part of her community. She used to be the wife of a brave firefighter, and now she's a trans widow. So that's trans widow profile number 1. Number 2 is Juliet. Juliet, I have personal contact with. She lives somewhere across the Atlantic Ocean in the other direction from Luanne. And she is a new trans widow of only 4 months since it all blew up in her face. And it sounds like she's quite strong. We are going to be sharing some calls. We've already shared some emails, and she is one of the subscribers to this channel. And we might work out something where she tells her story in diary form, where we carefully do not reveal her name or her location, but we reveal what her day-to-day life is like now that her husband has adopted female modes of dress and is confusing their 2-year-old child, he's already faced that she will not tolerate him pretending to be another mom. And so I will probably be filling you in about more as more of Juliet's trans widow journey as time goes on. And thank you, Juliet, and any trans widow who contacts me. Now, Gia, I know from someone who worked with her, who lives in the same country, also to the east of us in the U.S., across the Atlantic. They work together in an academic university environment. And now, while the daughter is just entering her teens, the husband decided that he's going to self-identify as transsexual. He has not had any surgeries, and that's unclear as to whether he intends to get them. But Gia is being drawn and sucked into this false world, this fictionalized version of who he is and what their marriage is. She's a heterosexual woman who is going through the trauma of her husband saying, our marriage is not going to stay the same. Our marriage is now different, and I am now just like you. And I am female. This is interesting because sometimes with men who have certain proclivities, if they have a daughter, when the daughter is approaching puberty, they get all interested in the sanitary napkins, the periods, the tampons, the menstrual cramps or whatever that their daughter is feeling for the first time, and he is in a parallel universe trying to feel this daughter entering her womanhood. Now, Gia is traumatized. She clearly is presenting very differently to her woman friends than she did in the past, and she's going along with a lot of affirming and appeasing of her husband, even though it's making her very unhappy and depressed. For example, another friend gave her a designer handbag of a company that her friend knew was a design type that Gia is fond of. And when she opened it, she immediately started talking about how her husband would really love this and she's going to give it to him. So just imagine being that friend who spent your own hard-earned money buying your woman friend a gift and thinking that it needs to be special because of what she's going through in her marriage. And then what does she do? She says, well, I'm going to re-gift it to my husband because it will make him happy, which kind of indicates, I'm reading into that this poor Gia is walking around on eggshells. And I know that. I know that very, very well. Whether or not he's taking estrogen, he is engaging in hothouse indignation. Every little thing is going to make him upset. If you're not giving him narcissistic fuel, he is going to blow up on you. You don't want to have that happen in front of your child. That's the scenario. Now, the last one, Belissa, I have had direct contact with, and we've spoken over the phone. She has 2 children that she's working very valiantly to get through high school and college. She has some health issues. Her former husband did this cross-sex ideation about 15 years ago, and it was the reason for their divorce. And then he went on into 3 more marriages. He's on his 4th marriage now, and he has detransitioned. He's completely detransitioned and appears everywhere as a man. I didn't get into the details with her in my conversations about whether or not he's had surgery and what his detransition means. But what I do know is that he's not paying child support. And he's had children in something like 3 out of the 4 marriages. And he's probably not very well if he was on estrogen for a long time and now he's stopped because it changes the male body's capacity to produce the male hormones properly. So those are 4 short profiles of trans widows, profiles in courage, people, women, mothers, sisters, daughters, dealing with very, very challenging circumstances and a rather unfriendly world now, a rather unfriendly